Okay, so good evening, everyone. We will be presenting Chapter 6, Courage and Moral Leadership, and our group members are Christopher Maharaj, myself, Nicolette Lalchan, and Renee Sohan. So next, the learning objectives are combine a rational approach to leadership with a concern for people and ethics. 2. Recognize your own stage of moral development and ways to accelerate your moral maturation. 3. Know and use mechanisms that enhance an ethical organizational culture. 4. Apply the principles of stewardship and servant leadership. And lastly, recognize courage in others and unlock your own potential to live and act courageously. Okay, so here we have the topic outline. We broke down the main topic into three subtopics, which are moral leadership, stewardship and servant leadership, and leadership courage. So here we have a quote, and it's taken from the book Leadership Lessons from the West Point. It's taken from chapter 14, The Key to Combat Leadership by Colonel Patrick Sweeney, who's now retired. And I quote, a leader's moral courage provides the force of will to do what is right, regardless of the situation and the costs the leader must incur. In combat, this is critical because leaders' moral courage and integrity define the moral and ethical boundaries that subordinates must operate within. So now we are going to discuss moral leadership. So we have the definition of moral leadership on the right side, and it says distinguishing right from wrong and doing right, seeking the just, honest, and good in practice of leadership. We also have on the left side the definition of ethics. So, what are ethics? Ethics are a set of rules, regulations, and a code of conduct that governs how a professional deals with each other and others outside of the profession. It will be different from moral code and legal code. And now I just gonna differentiate between ethical and moral leadership. Ethical leadership refers to a leadership approach that emphasizes adhering to established codes of conduct and principles. It's often guided by external standards and rules. Moral leadership, on the other hand, focuses on personal values, integrity, and the internal sense of right and wrong, often involving a deeper connection to one's own belief and convictions. So next, we'll have the moral leadership. So what is moral leadership? Someone who will provide values or meaning for people to live by, inspiration to act, and motivation to hold oneself accountable. When you don't see someone stepping up to provide purpose and doing what is best for the greater good. An effect of moral leadership, it is important to have a moral leader in government because moral leaders have the power to change the heart of the people. So next, we'll have a short video on moral leader.
I don't see any chance of success on the horizon that we can reach without moral leaders.
One of the things that I think is important to any moral leader is the ability to do self-reflection and be honest with yourself.
Moral leadership, I think, is doing the right thing in the right way for the right reasons.
Good leader is a good human being. You just need to go back to the basic qualities. You find leaders in all parts of society.
My definition of moral leadership, always doing what's best for the greater good of the whole.
Part of moral leadership is who you see and what you see in the other. And the more full humanity you see in the other, the more your own leadership will come from a place of care and empathy.
We all are leaders, that we can't just criticize what's going on out there without taking some responsibility in here in our hearts.
Here's the most important thing when it comes to moral leadership, that absolute certainty that in order for any organization or institution to succeed, that it needs to be founded on integrity.
Right, so this video just tells us how different persons feel about the term moral leadership. So next we'll be moving on to what are some of the characteristics of an ethical leader. So anyone in class wants to tell us what they think are some characteristics of an ethical leader. Anything? Anyone want to give it a try?
I'll give it a go. You all can hear me, right?
Yeah, we're hearing you.
Well, I think a moral leader would be fair and honest.
Yeah. And that you're talking about moral leader, right? But we're talking about ethical leader here now. But that can work for ethical leader as well. That's fine. All right. So now move on to the other slide. All right. So now we are just going to compare the unethical versus the ethical leadership. So for the unethical leader, that means that person is arrogant and self-serving, excessively promotes self-interest, practices deception, breaches agreements, deals unfairly, shifts blame to others, diminishes others' dignity, neglects follower development, withholds help and support, and lacks courage to confront unjust acts. So now we have the ethical leader. So possesses humility, maintains concern for the greater good, is honest and straightforward, as our classmate just said, fulfills commitments, strives for fairness, takes responsibility, shows respect for each individual, encourages and develops others, serves others, and shows courage to stand up for what is right. So now we are going to be discussing the 5 pillars of an ethical leadership. So, number 1, we have commitment. The starting point for leaders in a business is wanting to get a grip on ethics. Leaders must show a wholehearted and public sharing for their ethical position. Number 2, relevance. Ensure ethical concerns business directly or indirectly. A concern is, how do ethics affect my business and have relevance now and in long term? 3, positive value. Ensure ethics and compliance are integrated into our operational decision making. And when I say this, I mean ethics permeates the culture and drives changes in behavior. Fourthly, we have influence. So, leaders must maximize their moral or ethical influence. The best starting point is values. Certain values do have universal appeal. And lastly, means not ends. So, how we get there is just as critical as where do we want to go, which is the goal we be implying. The implication is the need to build relationships. So here we have some examples of an ethical leadership. So it's just 5 examples. So number one, a company CEO who consistently demonstrates honesty, integrity, and transparency in their decision making and prioritize the well-being of their employees and stakeholders over personal gain. Number two, a school principal who fosters a culture of inclusivity, diversity, and respect among students and staff, and holds themselves accountable for their actions and decisions. Number three, a political leader who upholds moral values, acts with fairness and justice, and advocates for the rights and welfare of all citizens, regardless of their background or beliefs. Number four, a nonprofit organization director who ensures that donor funds are used ethically and responsibly, and who prioritize the organization's mission and impact over personal recognition or advancement. And lastly, number five, a team leader who empowers and support their team members, promotes a culture of open communication and collaboration, and leads by example in terms of ethical behavior and decision making. So here we have a few points on how to act like a moral leader. So number one, develop, articulate, and uphold high moral principles. Number two, focus on what is right for the organization as well as the people involved. Three, set the example you want others to live by. Number four, be honest with yourself and others. Number five, drive out of fear and eliminate undiscussables. Number six, develop a backbone. Show zero tolerance for ethical violations. Number seven, reward ethical conduct. Number eight, develop sanctions for unethical behavior. Number nine, treat everyone with fairness and respect, from the lowest to the highest level of the organization. And lastly, number 10, do the right thing in both your private and professional life, even when no one is looking.
The
So we
last
have
chapter of my
another
book is
short
called The
video
Moral Leader,
on the
because
importance of a
that's
moral
exactly what
leader.
I think we need. Moral leaders lead with their values and their purpose, and they have a passion to make a difference in the world. I want to inspire and empower everyone listening to this to be that kind of leader, that we know we can trust you because you're true to who you are. And then you can choose where you want to focus your great energy and what are the unique gifts you bring to the world and how you're going to use them to make this world a better place for everyone. You can't solve all the problems in the world. You can't eliminate poverty or healthcare or income inequality or war. But what you can do is make a difference by choosing the area where you will have an impact on the world. Maybe it's gun security. Maybe it's women's rights. Maybe it's climate change. Maybe it's better health for everyone or redesigning the healthcare system. Maybe it's better education so everyone gets a shot at a good education. Whatever your calling is, I encourage you to be that leader and be a role model for others. And you'll find when you're that moral leader, people will come together and follow you and want to work with you toward a common end. And you'll be that person that does make a difference in the world. So I hope you'll feel inspired to step up and be that moral leader.
All right, so next we'll be discussing the 4 pillars of a moral leadership. So number one, purpose. Moral leaders are driven by purpose. So, when leaders pursue their purpose in ways that are bigger than themselves, it creates the space for others to share in the mission. Moral leaders see paths ahead as a journey and frame it explicitly for those whom they lead. Inspiration. Moral leaders inspire and elevate others. Those with moral authority understand what they can demand of others and what must inspire in them. Moral leaders ask persons to be loyal, but not to them, but rather to the overall purpose and the mission of the organization. Therefore, every decision is made with consideration of others, full humanity. And because they see that humanity in others, they are more inconclusive and better able to learn from those who they lead. Courage and patience. Moral leaders are animated by both courage and patience. It takes courage too. For instance, speaking out for a principle or a larger truth, especially when such an action has potential to put that leader in an uncomfortable or vulnerable position. Think of patience as a way of extending trust to others by allowing them the time to be more thorough and creative and long-term outcomes of any action. Perseverance. Moral leaders keep building muscle. Authentic leaders don't ever stop learning and growing just because they have accumulated formal authority. And I believe we see this in everyday life. They continue to build moral muscle by wrestling with questions of right and wrong, fairness and justice, and what serve others and what doesn't. So here we have three levels of personal moral development. So we have level one, pre-conventional. So the pre-conventional follow rules to avoid punishment, acts in own interest, blind obedience for authority for its own sake. Level 2 conventional lives up to expectations of others, fulfills duties and obligations of the social system, and uphold laws. Level 3 post conventional follows internalized universal principles of justice and right, balances concern for self with concern for others and the common good, acts in an independent and ethical manner regardless of the expectations of others. So here we have a real-time example. I believe everyone is familiar with his face. This is Nelson Mandela, an example of a great moral and most respected leader around the world. He's capable of reaching to the mind to people, and I say this because he persuaded persons inside and outside of his country. He was able to save Africa from civil war, and he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993. He also wiped out the racial discrimination in South Africa. So now we'll move on to how we can practice moral leadership. So we can have true concern with people, we can practice stewardship, provide equality and justice to all, and have self understanding. So now we're just gonna have two multiple choice, they'll be short. Right. So, number one, what is one of the pillars of moral leadership? So, we had four, right? So, A, moral leaders driven by purpose. B, moral leaders driven by power. C, moral leaders are driven by their self esteem. Or D, moral leaders are driven by their assets. Anyone want to tell me what do you think the answer is for this multiple choice? Okay, I just saw
A.
something in the chat. Yes, A. Correct. Moral leaders are driven by purpose. All right, so we have the second multiple choice now. So we had the 3 levels of personal moral development, right? So what is the second level of personal moral development? A, conventional, B, pre-conventional, C, post-conventional, or D, subconventional?
Is it A?
A, yes. So correct. It's A, conventional. All right, so now I hand you over to Rennie Suhan.
So, after thoroughly discussing moral leadership, we will now be discussing stewardship and servant leadership, which are all interconnected concepts through their shared emphasis on ethical behavior, responsibility, and a commitment to the well being of others. So, a leader's moral obligation to followers can be frequently challenged, whether it is to limit or control them in order to achieve organizational goals, fairly compensate them, or allow them to grow and create as humans. Modern leadership theories promotes change by transforming followers into leaders and developing their potential. This approach is best understood through the concept of servant leadership, which can be best understood by comparing it to other approaches. So here we have a continuum of leadership thinking and practice. So during the first level, which is authoritarian leadership, authoritarian subordinates are expected to follow orders without independent thought. In stage 2 of the continuum, which is participative leadership, subordinates take increasingly active roles in their own work. The third stage is stewardship, which involves shifting responsibility and power from leaders to followers. And the final stage, servant leadership, is relinquishing power and focusing on serving personnel as opposed to just stewardship. So, as the continuum progresses, leadership focuses on followers rather than the leader. So, in order to properly understand the continuum, we'll be comparing the first 2 types of leaders, authoritarian and participative. Based upon how each type of leadership makes decisions, communicates, empowers their followers, adapts in various situations, and give motivation. So, in terms of decision making, the authoritarian leader makes decisions independently, imposing them on their team without seeking input. The decision-making authority is centralized within the leader or a small group at the top. In contrast, team members in decision-making seek input and ideas to encourage collaboration and utilize collective wisdom. In terms of communication, the authoritarian leader relies on top-down communication, with the leader dictating instructions and limiting feedback or open dialogue, primarily focusing on conveying orders and expectations. While the participative leader promotes open, transparent communication, encourages feedback, and fosters a culture of collaboration by allowing the free flow of information and ideas among team members. Now, in terms of empowerment, the authoritarian leader prioritizes control over empowerment. This means he or she often makes decisions without the team input, leading to decreased engagement and motivation among team members. However, the participative leader empowers team members in decision making, fostering increased commitment, motivation, and ownership among them. Now, adaptability. The authoritarian leader can be rigid, implementing quick and unflinching decisions which can hinder adaptability in rapidly changing environments. In contrast, the participative leader fosters a flexible organizational culture by incorporating diverse perspectives, resulting in creative solutions and greater adaptability to changing circumstances. And finally, motivation. The authoritarian leader relies on compliance and adherence to rules for motivation, while team members may be motivated by fear of consequence. In contrast, the participative leader includes team members in decision making, and valuing their input can boost motivation as they feel more committed to the organization's goals. So now we have some multiple choice. So after discussing both authoritarian and participative leadership, out of the four choices, do you guys think you can give an example of an authoritative leader?
I would say A.
Yeah, that's correct. So, and somebody in the chat also said A. So was a trick question, right, guys? So all of the examples were authoritative leaders. So we'll move on to the next question now, which is to give an example of a participative leader.
Nelson Mandela.
Yeah, that's so true. So again, all of these can be examples of participative leaders. So now let's move on to discussing the third stage of the continuum, which is stewardship. So steward leadership is a leadership approach that emphasizes the responsibility of leaders to act as caretakers or guardians of the resources and well-being of their organizations. So followers are given decision-making authority and autonomy over how they carry out their duties. So leaders empower followers to impact objectives, systems, and structures, ultimately leading to their own leadership development. So stewardship promotes the concept that leaders are deeply accountable to both others and the organization as a whole, without trying to control others, define meaning and purpose for others, or care for others. Stewardship has been referred to as an alternative to leadership, since it focuses on those who make the product, provide service, or work directly with the customer. So in order to fully understand stewardship, we will now be discussing the four principles that give the framework for stewardship. So the first is reorient towards a partnership assumption. So this essentially means shifting focus or changing direction from formal leadership towards the belief that partnership are fundamental and essential in achieving goals or managing resources effectively. But what does that entail? This strategy entails combining resources, sharing knowledge, and accomplishing shared objectives. It promotes mutual responsibility among partners and recognizes the value of collaborative action. Partnership should be designed with all parties' interests, desires, and goals in mind, with the goal of maximizing mutual advantages while also fostering empowerment and equity. The second principle is localize decisions and power to those closest to the work and the customer. So this is a strategy that emphasizes delegated decision-making power, authority, and empowering individuals or teams who are directly involved in performing tasks. This approach encourages innovation and creativity at the local level, allowing faster responses to changing circumstances. Empowering employees or teams closest to the work fosters a sense of ownership and accountability, ensuring decisions are made with the customer's best interest in mind. Localized decision making eliminates lengthy approval processes, resulting in quicker responses to customer inquiries. It also allows for greater adaptability to changing market conditions and operational challenges. The third principle is recognize and reward the value of labor. So this refers to acknowledging the significance and contribution of work, whether it's physical, intellectual, or creative, and appropriately compensating individuals for their efforts. The reward system ties everyone's fortune to the success of the enterprise. However, stewardship involves redistributing wealth by designing compensation so that core workers can make significant gains when they make exceptional contributions. It also involves treating all workers with fairness and equity, regardless of factors such as gender, race, or socioeconomic background. Fair treatment includes providing equal opportunities for advancement, training, and development, as well as addressing any disparities or inequalities in compensation or working conditions. Everyone earns his or her pay by delivering real value, and the organization pays everyone as much as possible. And rewards can take the form of bonuses, promotions, recognition awards, or additional benefits. And the final principle of stewardship is expect core work teams to build the organization. So this means relying on and empowering small specialized group of employees who are directly involved in the core functions or activities of the organization to drive its growth, development, and success. These teams focus on executing essential tasks, ensuring efficiency and effectiveness. They are empowered with autonomy, authority, and responsibility to make decisions, solve problems, and drive initiatives. They collaborate closely with other teams, departments, or stakeholders to achieve common goals. Core work teams are expected to drive innovation, adapt to changing environments, and require strong leadership and accountability. They should align with the organization's broader goals, visions, and values, ensuring resource investment and value creation. So, after discussing the principles that make up stewardship, let us now look at a video which discusses how stewardship makes a
We
difference.
live in times when ordinary people, consumers and customers are looking for good corporate behavior, and they will not buy your product unless they are convinced that you're doing right by people and planet.
Traditional capitalism is always about the immediate, the tangible, the returns here and now. And there is no greater time than this moment where we really need to think about the long term. We need to think about sustainability. I think right now, what the globe is telling us, what the earth is telling us, is how important it is for us to think long term, think about future generations. And stewardship is all about that.
I think leaders really set the tone and the culture for the entire organization. They decide, how are we going to work with one another? You know, what are the priorities going to be? When the senior leaders decide that this is a priority for them, they're going to put their time, their energy, and their emotional energy into it. It makes a huge difference for the entire organization. It actually frees up the people under them to be more creative, to be more innovative, and to show more commitment in these areas themselves.
So, what can we learn from the video? So, stewardship makes a difference by promoting responsible and ethical behavior, fostering collaboration and innovation, and contributing to the well being of people and the planet. By embracing the principles of stewardship, individuals, organizations, and societies can work together to create a more equitable and prosperous future for all. But what about servant leadership? Well, a servant leader transcends self interest and focuses on serving others' needs, helping them grow and develop, along with providing opportunities for material and emotional growth. A servant leader prioritizes addressing both stakeholder needs and their team's needs, focusing on developing and mentoring their team. They prioritize the growth and development of their followers over personal gain, even in governance positions. So, servant leaders share power and encourage growth, listening to followers to understand their needs and holding themselves and others accountable for their actions. So, different styles of leadership have their own advantages and disadvantages that make them a better model depending on the context. So, some advantages of servant leadership is that leaders can earn respect from their employees feel valued, and that management is looking out for their interests. There's also shared vision. Additionally, there's often greater trust amongst the employees and leaders. Leaders also consider the opinions of staff, which is likely to improve innovative efforts, and individuals develop skills that can advance them professionally in a supportive environment. So the disadvantages of servant leadership are that few leaders have experience in this type of management, especially what we might call like older leaders. And adopting this style of leadership may require a difficult cultural change. Additionally, decisions can take time, which can be detrimental in times of crisis, or staff may be given more responsibility than they are able to carry. So, I want us now to look at another short video that thoroughly explains the servant leadership theory.
Servant leadership is a tried and tested leadership approach that's about creating a shift from managing for results to designing environments that create results. Robert Greenleaf coined the phrase servant leadership in the 1970s. It's a form of leadership that replaces self-interest with service to others. Servant leadership is about influence rather than power and control, focusing on others' strengths rather than weaknesses, listening rather than giving orders, and long-range benefits rather than short-term profits. Servant leaders demonstrate a range of 9 key attributes. The good news is that all of these can be developed. Listening, self-awareness, foresight, empathy, persuasion, stewardship, healing, conceptualization, and building a sense of community. Servant leadership is about transformation and future focus. And adopting its leadership principles complements agile ways of working really well. The nature of work in the workplace has changed drastically. Our leaders need to change too. In order to continue to maximize delivery and customer value, our leaders need to demonstrate an ability to adapt. According to the Economist Intelligence Unit, the top 3 emergent leadership requirements are ability to motivate, ability to work well across cultures and geographical boundaries, and ability to facilitate change. An effective servant leader would demonstrate these by role modeling collaboration, accountability, and demonstrating innovation, emphasizing the importance of embracing and applying new knowledge at an individual and team level, and encouraging novel approaches and ideas. New demands are being made of leaders at all levels. The world's leading lean and agile thinkers together articulate 8 core competencies that they believe will differentiate leaders of the future. And these are innovation, strategic, excitement, tactical, communication, production, consensual, and delegation. So, in summary, servant leadership is an attractive, effective, and proven approach that should be the choice for those interested in transformation at an individual and organizational level.
So, after being able to thoroughly understand the theory of servant leadership, it is fitting now to delve into its historical development. So, the idea of using leadership to serve others can be traced back to ancient traditions that placed a strong emphasis on moral behavior, humility, and compassion. The idea of servant leadership was also influenced by religion and spirituality. One example is that Christianity embodies it via the actions of Jesus Christ, who symbolizes service and humility. However, the modern concept of servant leadership was popularized by Robert Greenleaf in the 1970s. And on the left side of the screen, we have an image of him. So Robert Greenleaf is credited with developing and popularizing the concept of servant leadership through his writings and teachings. His ideas were shaped by his personal journey, including his experiences as an executive at AT&T and his observation of organizational dynamics, leadership styles, and workplace cultures. Greenleaf drew inspiration from literature, philosophy, and religion, particularly Hermann Hesse's writings on personal growth, service, and self-awareness. In 1970, Greenleaf published an essay titled The Servant as Leader, which introduced the concept of servant leadership. He proposed a radical rethinking of leadership, arguing that true leaders prioritize the needs of others, empower their followers, and serve the greater good. He highlighted that key principles of servant leadership include empathy, humility, stewardship, and the commitment to developing the potential of others. Greenleaf's work on servant leadership has significantly influenced leadership theory and practice, with his ideas being embraced by leaders across various sectors. His work, including Servant Leadership, A Journey into the Nature of Legitimate Power and Greatness, and the Power of Servant Leadership, continues to be promoted and practiced worldwide by the Greenleaf Center for Servant Leadership, which was established in 1964. So, part of Greenleaf's contribution to servant leadership was the development of Greenleaf's leadership model, and it can be broken down into 4 stages. So, first we have put service before self-interest. So, servant leaders make a conscious choice to use their gifts in the cause of change and growth for other individuals and for the organization. The desire to help others take precedence over the desire to achieve a formal leadership position or to attain power and control over others. Putting service before self-interest requires leaders to be self-aware, humble, and committed to the greater good. It also involves making decisions on what is best for the team and the organization as a whole, rather than solely focusing on personal gain or recognition. This mindset fosters trust, collaboration, and a sense of community within the organization, ultimately leading to greater success and fulfillment for everyone involved. Secondly, we have listen first to affirm others. So the servant leader doesn't have answers. He or she asks questions. In servant leadership, listening is considered a cornerstone skill. It involves not only hearing what others are saying, but also understanding their perspective, feelings, and needs. By attentively listening, leaders can demonstrate respect, empathy, and a genuine interest in others. The servant leader tries to figure out the will of the group and then further it however he can. The servant leader, he doesn't impose his will on others, but by understanding how others feel, he can contribute to the best course of action. So the third stage of Greenleaf's model is inspire trust by being trustworthy. Servant leaders uphold high ethical standards, are honest, transparent, and consistent in their actions. They demonstrate reliability, open communication, and consistency in decision making. In addition, trust grows from trusting others to make their own decisions. So, servant leaders gain trust because they give everything away: power, control, rewards, information, and recognition. As a result, trust allows others to flourish. And the last stage of the servant leadership model is nourish others and help them become whole. Servant leaders care about followers' spirits as well as their minds and bodies, and they believe in the unique potential of each person to have a positive impact on the world. Servant leaders help others to find the power of the human spirit and accept their responsibilities. This requires an openness and willingness to share in the pain and difficulties of others. Being close to people also means leaders make themselves vulnerable to others and are willing to show their own pain and humanity. So after what was discussed, now we have a chance for others to say what characteristic of a servant leader stood out to you. So anyone can answer, or you guys can type it in the chat. Well, I know for me is that one characteristic of a servant leader that has always stood out is the willingness to listen, right? And someone said empathy. That is also a great characteristic. So now for the final part of my presentation, I will be discussing 4 examples of servant leadership. So first we have Mother Teresa, who was a dedicated servant leader. She spent her life serving the poor in Kolkata, India, and worldwide. Despite receiving numerous awards, including the Nobel Peace Prize, she remained humble and focused on her mission. Mother Teresa empowered others to join her in her mission of love and service, inspiring countless volunteers and followers to create a global movement of compassion and kindness. Her vision was to alleviate the suffering of the poor and bring dignity and hope to the most marginalized members of society. Her leadership was deeply rooted in her faith and spirituality, guiding her actions and commitment to serving others. Secondly, we have Howard Schultz, the former Starbucks CEO. He is a servant leader who prioritized employee well-being, customer focus, community engagement, innovation, visionary leadership, empowerment, ethical leadership, and adaptability. He implemented policies and initiatives to improve the life of Starbucks employees, such as healthcare benefits for both full-time and part-time employees and stock ownership programs. He emphasized the importance of providing exceptional customer experiences, creating a welcoming environment where customers felt valued and connected to the brand. He also demonstrated a deep commitment to giving back to the communities where Starbucks operated, participating in philanthropic initiatives. He was also able to foster a culture of innovation and continuous improvement, introducing new products, store formats, and technological solutions to enhance customer experiences and drive business growth. Overall, Schultz demonstrated resilience and adaptability in navigating challenges and setbacks, maintaining a focus on long-term sustainability and success. So now that we have discussed 2 examples of popular servant leaders, I want us to now consider 2 servant leaders from our very own country. Firstly, we have Anna Robinson, which stands for Arthur Napoleon Raymond Robinson. He was a Trinidad and Tobagonian politician who served as Prime Minister and President. He was a strong advocate for democracy, the rule of law, and social justice, championing policies to address socio-economic disparities and empower marginalized communities. He was known for his accessibility and approachability, engaging with ordinary citizens to understand their needs and priorities. He believed in empowering citizens to participate actively in the democratic process and encourage civic engagement. Robinson's integrity, honesty, and ethical leadership earned him trust and admiration from colleagues, constituents, and fellow leaders. He had a clear vision for the country's future, pursuing policies aimed at economic growth, social development, and international cooperation. He also demonstrated adaptability and resilience in navigating complex governance challenges, demonstrating his commitment to serving the people even during times of crisis and uncertainty. And finally, we have Basley Pandey. He was a prominent figure in Trinidad and Tobago and is described as a servant leader. He consistently advocated for the rights and interests of marginalized communities. He championed causes such as workers' rights, social justice, and equality, demonstrating a strong commitment to serving those often overlooked or disadvantaged in society. Pandey believes in empowering ordinary citizens and marginalized groups to participate actively in the political process, creating opportunities for their voice to be heard and concerns to be addressed. He had a clear vision for the country's future rooted in the principles of fairness, equity, and progress. Pandey was also known for his accessibility and accountability, connecting with constituents and addressing their needs. He emphasized the importance of accountability in governance and stood firm in his convictions even when facing criticism. His legacy as a servant leader has continued to inspire individuals in Trinidad and beyond, leaving a lasting impact on the political landscape. So, thank you guys for listening. I will now hand you over to Christopher, who will be discussing leadership courage.
These questions come up a lot, and you can, so there's articles written about this, like, what are the three most important characteristics of a leader? Vision, charisma, and I've met some wonderful, fantastic leaders who are not big Steve Jobs visionaries.
Sure.
And I've met some amazing leaders who don't seem to have sort of that bounce off the wall charisma, they're sort of the quiet one sitting in the corner. I am comfortable saying, however, that great leaders, the best leaders I've ever met, they will have courage. Leadership is extremely difficult. Sometimes it's thankless, it's lonely. When things go right, you have to give away the credit. When things go wrong, you have to take all the responsibility. Well, that sucks. And it's sometimes the gains are sometimes not immediate. And it takes tremendous amount of courage to lead. What's more, we talk about integrity. I think integrity takes courage, to speak truth to power, to do the right thing in the face of overwhelming pressure to do the opposite. All of these things take courage, which I think begs the question, then where does courage come from? I don't believe that courage is an internal fortitude where you dig down deep and find the courage. I think courage is external. It's like, a world famous trapeze artist has the courage to try a brand new death-defying act for the first time with a net. They wouldn't try it without the net. It's the net that gave them the courage. And I think so too is it for human beings, that the quality of our relationships give us courage. You talk to folks in uniform who do heroic things. They'll never say it was for God or country. It was for the person to the left or the person to the right. It was the quality of the relationships. And so for us to build courage, what we have to do is invest in relationships. Because when you're facing a very difficult situation, an ethical challenge, a work challenge, whatever it is, all we need is one person in our lives who says, I've got your back. I believe in you. You have to do this. It's the right thing to do. And if everything goes sideways, don't worry, I'll be there with you. I mean, even just talking about it, you feel like you have renewed energy. And so if you have one person in your life who can provide that for you at work or at home, you'll be amazed the amount of courage you have to do the right thing and to lead.
So, leadership courage. It is the willingness and ability of a leader to make bold decisions, take calculated risks, and confront difficult situations or challenges for the greater good of their team or organization. It involves standing up for what's right, even when it's unpopular, and being resilient in the face of adversity. Some people feel that leadership is impossible without bravery. However, the value of bravery is sometimes overlooked by leaders, especially those employed by large companies, from whom getting along, fitting in, and doing whatever gets them promotions and salary increases is more important. It can be easy to forget even the definition of courage in a society of security and abundance. So, how can leaders know where to look for it when they need it? So, in that case, we need to know and understand what is courage. Courage is the strength to confront fear, adversity, and or uncertainty, and to persevere in the face of challenges or risks. It is about taking action despite potential consequences, standing up for what you believe in, and facing difficult situations with resolve and bravery. Here we have a quote from Nelson Mandela. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. Nelson Mandela demonstrated immense courage throughout his life, particularly during his long struggle against apartheid in South Africa. He endured 27 years of imprisonment, yet remained steadfast in his commitment to equality and justice. Mandela showed courage by advocating for peaceful resistance, reconciliation, and forgiveness even after suffering years of oppression. His ability to transcend bitterness and lead his country towards reconciliation exemplifies remarkable courage. Here we have another cool quote from Walt Disney, which is said, courage is the main quality of leadership in my opinion. No matter where it is exercised, usually it implies some risks, especially in new undertakings. He showed courage by persisting in the face of numerous setbacks and failures, despite experiencing bankruptcy, rejection, and criticism early in his career. He remained determined to pursue his career. He remained determined to pursue his creative vision. Disney took significant risks, such as mortgaging his house to finance the production of Snow White. His willingness to push boundaries and innovate, even when faced with uncertainty, exemplifies courage. The defining characteristics of courage. The defining characteristic of courage is the ability to step forward through fear. Courage doesn't mean the absence or doubt of fear, but the ability to act in spite of them. If there were no fear or doubt, courage would not be needed. People experience all kinds of fears, including fear of death, mistakes, failures, embarrassment, change, loss of control, even loneliness, pain, uncertainty, abuse, rejection, success, and even public speaking. It is a natural and right for people to feel fear when real risk is involved, whether the risk be losing your life, losing your job, losing the acceptance of peers, or losing your reputation. Fear is the opportunity for courage, not proof of cowardice. Accepting responsibility. Courage means accepting responsibility. Leaders make a real difference in the world when they are willing to step up and take personal responsibility. Some people just let life happen, but leaders make things happen. Courageous leaders create opportunities to make a difference in their organizations and communities. When someone demonstrates courage by accepting responsibility, they are willing to face the outcomes, whether positive or negative, of their choices and behaviors. This involves being accountable for one's actions, admitting mistakes, and taking steps to rectify any harm caused. Individuals demonstrate integrity and maturity, and even commitment to ethical behavior, even in challenging circumstances. Courage and responsibility are intertwined, as both require individuals to confront reality and take action despite potential risks or discomfort, rather than avoiding blame or shifting it to others. Next, we have nonconformity. Nonconformity in leadership means going against the grain, breaking traditions, reducing boundaries, and initiating change. Leaders are willing to take risks for a larger ethical purpose, and they encourage others to do so. It involves the willingness to challenge conventional norms, question the status quo, or go against prevailing expectations or conventional norms. Leaders who portray nonconformity courage are unafraid to think differently, challenge established practices, and champion new ideas, which may even disrupt existing systems or paradigms. They are not deterred by criticism or resistance. So some examples of persons who would have displayed leadership courage would have been one, Mahatma Gandhi. Through non-violent resistance, Gandhi led India to independence from British colonial rule, challenging the notion that violence was the only means to achieve political change. For a more recent example, we have Elon Musk. He is the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, who is known for his visionary leadership and willingness to take bold risks, such as producing reusable rockets and his venture into electric vehicles, despite the initial skepticism from the industry. Remember, he was a person who didn't have a startup company before. He began with electric vehicles, and now today everybody wants one. Courage. Courage means pushing beyond the comfort zone. To take a chance and improve things means leaders have to push beyond their comfort zone. When people go beyond the comfort zone, they encounter an internal wall of fear. Courage manifests the willingness to venture beyond one's comfort zone, confronting fears and uncertainties head on rather than retreating to safety of the familiar. It involves taking risks, embracing new experiences, and standing up to challenges, even when doubt and discomfort loom large. Stepping outside of the boundaries of comfort fosters personal growth, resilience, and self discovery as individuals learn to navigate unfamiliar terrain and overcome obstacles. It is through these acts of courage that one finds the strength to pursue ambitious goals, speak up for beliefs, and ultimately unlock the full potential of their capabilities, leading to a life rich with meaningful experience and accomplishments. Courage means asking for what you want and saying what you think. Leaders have to speak out to influence others. However, the desire to please others, especially the boss, as we could say, can sometimes block the truth. Everyone wants approval, so it's difficult to say things when you think others will disagree or disapprove. Courage indeed encompasses the act of asking for what you want and articulating your thoughts and beliefs with honesty and conviction. It involves overcoming the fear of that rejection or criticism to assert your needs and express your opinions, even when they may be unpopular or challenging. By mustering the courage to speak up and advocate for yourself, you not only assert your individuality, but you also foster open communication, mutual understanding, and personal empowerment in relationships, work, and society at large. The third point here is courage means fighting for what you believe in. Courage means fighting for valued outcomes that benefit the whole. Leaders take risks, but they do so for a higher purpose. Courage embodies the determination to fight for what one believes in, even when facing daunting obstacles or formidable opposition. It involves standing firm in one's convictions, advocating for the principles and values that resonate deeply, and persevering in the face of adversity. Whether it's championing social justice, defending human rights, or pursuing personal dreams, courage empowers individuals to take bold actions and make a positive difference in the world by staying true to their beliefs and striving to create meaningful change. How does courage now apply to moral leadership? So we have 2 points here. The first one is acting like a moral leader requires personal change. To practice moral leadership, leaders have to know themselves, understand their strengths and weaknesses, know what they stand for, and often be nonconformist. Honest self analysis can be painful, and acknowledging one's limitations in order to recognize the superior abilities of others, which takes personal strength of character. In addition, moral leadership means building relationships, which requires sharing yourself, listening, having significant personal experiences with others, and making yourself vulnerable. Qualities that frighten many, many people. Yet finding emotional strength requires people to overcome their deepest fears and accept emotions as a source of strength rather than weakness. True power lies in the emotions that connect people by getting close and doing what is best for others, sharing the good and the bad, the pain and the anger, as well as the success and the joy. Leaders bring out the best quality in others. The second point that we have is opposing unethical conduct requires courage, whistleblowing, right? Which means employee disclosure of illegal, immoral, or unethical practices in the organization. One recent example of courage in this area is Colleen Rowley, the Minneapolis FBI staff attorney whose whistleblowing letter called attention to agency shortcomings that may have contributed to the September 11, 2001, which is the 9/11 attack, right? A colleague of Rowley said she always does what is right, even when no one is watching. Most whistleblowers realize that they may suffer financially and emotionally from their willingness to report unethical conduct on their part of bosses or coworkers. They step forward to tell the truth despite a jumble of contradictory emotions and fears. Choosing to act courageously means conflicting emotions. Whistleblowers may feel an ethical obligation to report the wrongdoing, but may also feel disloyal to their bosses and coworkers. Some may battle with themselves about where their responsibility lies. As a result of widespread corporate scandals in recent years, smart companies are beginning to see whistleblowing as a benefit rather than a threat. But how does one find personal courage? How does a leader find personal courage? How does a leader find the courage to step through fear and confusion, to act despite the risks involved? All of us have the potential to live and act courageously. If we can push through our own fears, most of us have learned fears that limit our comfort zones and stand in the way of being our best and accomplishing our goals. We have been conditioned to follow the rules, not rock the boat, to go along with things we feel are wrong so others will like and accept us. There are a number of ways people can unlock the courage within themselves, including committing to causes they believe in, connecting with others, welcoming failure as a natural and beneficial part of life, and harnessing anger and frustration. We're going to dive into each one of these points a little bit. So the first point is believe in a higher purpose. Courage comes easily when we fight for something we really believe in. Leaders who have a strong emotional commitment to a larger vision or purpose find the courage to step through fear. As a leader, you can find personal courage by committing to something you deeply believe in. You can welcome potential failure as a means of growth and development, and build bonds of caring and mutual support with family, friends, and colleagues to reduce fear. The next point we have is draw strength from others. Caring about others and having support from others is a potent source of courage in a topsy-turvy world. Love is a strong ingredient of courage because it makes us willing to sacrifice. So consider a caring parent who will risk his or her own life to save a child. Leaders who genuinely care about the people they work with will take risks to help those people grow and succeed. Having the support of others is also a source of courage, and the best leaders aren't afraid to learn or lean on others when they need to. People who feel alone in the world take fewer risks because they have they have more to lose. Being part of an organizational team that is supportive and caring, or having a loving and supportive family at home, can reduce the fear of failure and help people take risks they otherwise wouldn't take. Next, we have welcoming failure.
The truth is, being successful is hard, and you won't necessarily succeed at everything the first time you try. Some of the most successful people in the world are the ones who've had the most failures. J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter, her first Harry Potter book was rejected 12 times before it was finally published. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. He lost hundreds of games and missed thousands of shots during his career. But he once said, I have failed over and over and over again in my life, and that's why I succeed. These people succeeded because they understood that You can't let your failures define you. You have to let your failures teach you. You have to let them show you what to do differently the next time. But whatever you resolve to do, I want you to commit to it. I want you to really work at it.
So when people accept failure,
the truth is,
they are at peace with the worst possible outcome. They find they have the fortitude to move forward. Leaders know that failure can lead to success and that they have fortitude to move forward. Leaders know that failure can lead to success and that the pain of learning strengthens individuals and the organization. Every time you push beyond your comfort zone, every time you fail and try again, you build psychological strength and courage. Welcoming failure is a hallmark of leadership courage, as it involves embracing risks and learning from setbacks in pursuit of greater goals. Leaders who exhibit this type of courage understand that failure is not the opposite of success, but rather an essential part of the journey towards it. By encouraging experimentation, exploration, and innovation, leaders create a culture where individuals feel empowered to take risks and push boundaries, knowing that failure is not a reflection of their worth, but an opportunity for growth and improvement. Through resilience, adaptability, and willingness to confront failure head on, leaders inspire their teams to overcome challenges, seize opportunities, and ultimately achieve greater success in the long run. So another popular example of a well-known leader who welcomed failure, as seen in the video, is J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series. Before achieving immense success, Rowling faced numerous rejections from publishers who turned down her manuscript. Despite these setbacks, she persisted in pursuing her dream of becoming a published author. Rowling's journey to success was marked by personal struggles, including financial difficulties and the loss of her mother. However, she continued to write and revise her manuscript, drawing inspiration from her own experiences and imagination. In interviews, she spoke out openly about the challenges she faced and how failures served as a catalyst for growth and resilience. She emphasizes the importance of perseverance and self-belief, encouraging aspiring writers to embrace rejection as part of the creative process. Ultimately, Rowling's courage in the face of failure paid off when Bloomsbury Publishing took a chance on her debut novel, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. The book went on to become a global phenomenon, launching a beloved franchise that has captivated millions of readers worldwide. Rowling's story serves as a powerful example of how courageously confronting failure can lead to extraordinary success. And the fourth point is harnessing frustration and anger.
Harnessing the power of anger. In the world of leadership, emotions play a vital role. Not just the positive ones, but also the more challenging, like anger. Anger is often seen as destructive. But when channeled correctly, it can be a powerful tool for change. Think about leaders who stood against injustice. Their anger fueled their fight, pushing them to make a difference. However, it's crucial to express anger appropriately. It shouldn't be about outbursts, but about communication and problem solving. Harnessing anger effectively requires self-awareness. Leaders must understand their feelings and respond, not just react. In conclusion, anger can be a leadership asset. Like any tool, it's all about how you use it.
So if you have ever been really angry about something, you know that it can cause you to forget about fear of embarrassment or fear that others won't like you, like some people in we radiology class. But harnessing frustration and anger with regards to leadership courage involves channeling these emotions into constructive action and positive change, rather than allowing them to dictate negative behavior or impede progress. Leaders who exhibit this type of courage understand that frustration and anger can be powerful motivators for addressing injustices, driving innovation, and overcoming obstacles. For example, a leader may encounter frustration and anger in response to systemic issues within their organization, such as inequality or inefficiency. So instead of succumbing to these negative emotions, they might channel them into advocating for meaningful reforms, implementing new policies, or fostering a culture of accountability and transparency. Similarly, leaders facing external challenges or setbacks may feel anger at the perceived injustices or obstacles hindering their progress. Rather than becoming consumed by these emotions, they can harness them to fuel resilience, determination, and strategic problem solving. By harnessing frustration and anger in a constructive manner, leaders demonstrate courage by confronting difficult realities, advocating for change, and inspiring others to join them in the pursuit for a better future. This approach fosters resilience, innovation, and positive transformation within organizations and communities, ultimately leading to greater success and impact. So one example of a leader harnessing frustration is one of them that we would have mentioned before, which is again Nelson Mandela, right? So to kind of bring back in a little bit of his past, right? He's the former president of South Africa and a key figure in the fight against apartheid, right? So during his decades-long struggle against apartheid, he faced frustration and anger in the injustices perpetrated by the apartheid regime. And despite enduring 27 years of imprisonment, Mandela channeled his anger into a steadfast commitment to justice, equality, and reconciliation. Upon his release from prison in 1990, Mandela demonstrated remarkable courage by advocating for peaceful negotiation and reconciliation rather than seeking revenge or perpetrating violence. He engaged in dialogue with his former oppressors, including South Africa's apartheid government, to negotiate a peaceful transition to democracy. Mandela's ability to harness his frustration and anger into constructive action paved the way for a dismantling of apartheid and the establishment of democratic South Africa. His leadership exemplified the transformative power of courageously confronting injustice and adversity with resilience, compassion, and a commitment to positive change. So here we have some multiple choice questions. We almost finished, right? So the first question would be, how does one find personal courage? A, believe in your boss. B, believe in a higher purpose. C, believe in your parents. Or D, believe in the people them man. Which one is the answer to this, guys?
It'll be B.
Yeah, very good. Somebody in the chat type D. Nice, but no problem. The next multiple choice question is, who is an example of courageous leader mentioned? A, Nelson Mandela. B, Elton John. C, Kim Jong-un. Or D, Vladimir Putin? Anybody? This is an easy one.
All of them?
Nah, just Nelson.
A, Nelson Mandela. A.
Just Nelson. And finally, we have one short answer. What are the three defining characteristics of courage mentioned? Anybody? All right, this one looked like a hard one. So the three that were mentioned is to step forward through fear, take personal responsibility, and non-conformity. There were two others as well, but that's fine. So in conclusion, courage is a vital characteristic for moral leadership as it enables leaders to make difficult decisions that align with their values and principles. Moral leaders exhibit courage by standing up for what is right, even in the face of adversity or opposition. By demonstrating courage in their actions, moral leaders inspire others to act ethically and responsibly, ultimately fostering a culture of integrity within an organization or community. Moral leadership involves leading with integrity and ethical principles, making decisions that benefit the greater good. Stewardship emphasizes responsible management and the protection of resources for future generations. Servant leadership focuses on serving others and putting their needs first. Leadership courage is essential for all these leadership styles, enabling leaders to make tough decisions, stand up for what is right, and inspire others to act ethically. Together, these qualities form a powerful combination that can drive positive change and creative culture of trust, respect, and integrity. Thanks for listening, guys, and well, here's your references used.